Larry Lee with Brownfield Ag News, and Sandra Chalmers joins us from the Wisconsin State FSA office. You had a meeting with USDA yesterday, in fact, all the state directors, from what I understand, to help clarify what works and what doesn't work with the CFAP applications. Let's go over that first. What were some of the big points that came out of yesterday's meeting?
Well, this is something we do on a regular basis whenever we roll out a new program. We meet on a weekly basis to discuss any issues, anything that needs to be nailed down. And as you can imagine, there are so many different scenarios across this country, and even the dairy industry varies so much depending on the region. So there are a lot of regional and commodity type differences that all need to be worked through. One of the things we did talk about yesterday was hay and silage, and I know there are a lot of opinions out there about what's covered and what's not under the CFAP program. So I'll go through those details. Grass hay and alfalfa are not eligible for CFAP payment. This is what is eligible. Hay and silage is eligible when it incorporates a grain that's covered by CFAP. And those covered commodities are corn, soybeans, oats, wheat, barley, and grain sorghum. So producers are not paid on the tons, they're paid on a grain equivalent number of bushels. And those conversion formulas are available at your FSA office or through extension. Just remember that this is a producer certification program. So when you do that conversion, keep a record of how you figured that out, and that will come in handy down the road in case you're audited. Now, I would say there are different types of grain silage and grain hays grown around the country for different uses. Corn silage is very common here in Wisconsin and the upper Midwest, and that conversion factor is the number of tons times 7.94 bushels per ton, and that gives you the total bushels. An example of hay, I would use oats that are seeded into alfalfa as a nurse crop, and often that's harvested before the oats come to maturity. So you would be paid on the grain equivalent of that, and the conversion factor for oat hay would be 11.66 bushels per ton. So just remember, this is information available through your FSA office, or you could use extension conversion charts. Those things are readily available. But if you run into difficulties finding a conversion factor, your FSA staff is readily available to help you out with it.
So the bottom line there is some hay, but not all hay, qualifies as long as there is a grain equivalent that can be extracted from it.
That's exactly the way it works. We are getting a lot of questions about grass hay and alfalfa grass mixes and whether that's eligible. That is not. It's the grain that's eligible for CFAP. So you would go through a conversion factor and come up with a bushel equivalent, and that's what you would be paid on.
So regular grass hay, regular alfalfa, I would imagine most haylage not eligible.
I would say that too. Straight hay would not be eligible. Again, it's the grain that the producer would be paid on.
So if there's grain involved, go ahead and figure it out. If there's no grain, don't bother.
Right. And something else I would add, Larry, is that these details are settling out and the information is getting to producers, and sometimes that takes some time for all the details to get out across the countryside. If a producer put alfalfa on their CFAP application, we would just say alfalfa is not eligible, but then go ahead and process the rest of the application. So producers shouldn't be worried that they'll have to start over from square one. We would just, anything that's on the application that's not eligible, we still would move forward with the application on the eligible entries.
Now, something we covered last time we talked, especially for the dairy producers, milk is eligible, and there's a step they can take that would really speed up their application starting online, isn't there?
There is. There's an online payment calculator that really steps you through the information that you need for your application. It's an Excel workbook that you download onto your own computer. And the nice thing about this workbook is that you press a button when you're done entering your information, and it automatically generates a filled out application that's ready for you to sign and then email to the or mail to the FSA office. So it's a great way to kind of speed up or um, make the process quicker for everybody. I think a lot of people are finding that they can only get so far and then they'll have a question for their FSA office, especially with a dairy application, because there's the grain, silage, milk, and livestock payments. So don't hesitate to reach out when you hit that wall, and we'll help you through and get your application in the process. And our goal, of course, is to get people assistance as quickly as possible.
But that workbook allows the producer to get that important production information in place so the application goes a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think s- it's really a time saver for everybody, and we want to expedite the process as much as we can. And if you have an appointment set up already, that's great. But make sure you have as much information ready to go for that appointment as possible. Um, we don't want to what we don't want to have happen is make you sit through one appointment where we explain to you what kind of information and documentation you need to fill out the application, and then have to set up another appointment where we actually walk through the application with you. So producers that do their homework and prepare for an appointment are going to get through the process a lot more quickly.
You mentioned that yesterday's meeting involved a lot of discussion about specialty crops. We should cover some of that. Wisconsin, neighboring states have several specialty crops. Many of these people, I understand, have never really had to work with FSA before. So, what are they talking about when it comes to specialty crops?
Well, that's true of specialty crops, and it's also true of some of our beef producers. They may never have been an FSA customer. So we do expect to see some new beef and maybe hog producers as well who are now eligible for this program. The specialty crops are so unique based on the commodity or part of the country they're grown in. So there are just a lot of questions about how this works. And specialty crops, there are several buckets that the payments fit in, whether the the commodity went to market but then was not paid, or whether well, there are just a number of scenarios that we're working through, and because this is so new for everybody, there are a lot of details that need to be worked through and talked through.
So, especially crop producers, they should probably get a hold of FSA offices and just find out where to begin, right?
Yeah, if you're a new producer to FSA, I do recommend that you start at farmers.gov, and there's a list of all the forms that you need to fill out to on eligibility and direct deposit, and you have to verify your adjusted gross income and your farm operating structure, just those basic FSA eligibility documents. And once you get those filled out and ready to go, we can talk about your crop that you grow and how that would be eligible for payment.
Now, if I'm understanding this correctly, CFAP still has several things that USDA is thinking about and still yet to make a ruling on. One of them is what to do about seasonal dairies, right?
seasonal dairies, how to treat them under CFAP is still under discussion, and USDA is looking at a couple of options there. But I do expect that we'll have a decision shortly.
Anything you'd like to add today?
You didn't ask me about high moisture corn.
You're right. I forgot that one.
And I know there are questions about high moisture corn.
We better cover
High,
that one.
high moisture corn is covered under CFAP. And there again, you would use a conversion formula to convert that to an industry standard. For corn would be 15.5%. And those formulas are readily available through FSA or extension. But again, make sure you keep a record of how you figured your bushel equivalent, because that may come in handy down the road.
Sandy Chalmers, State FSA Director for Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.